The Tshwane Energy Summit took place here in Pretoria on the 19th and 20th of June, at the same time that a new government of national unity has come into power in South Africa. And the reason why I mention that is because it comes at a time where cooperation, coalitions and collective thinking about solving South Africa's problems is sorely needed. The Tshwane Energy Summit, as it took place here in Pretoria, invited stakeholders from government, from the private sector, from locally and internationally to come and talk about the priorities for a city like Tshwane. And the mayor of the city, a DA leader in the city, gave the message to stakeholders early on that while coalition politics and very much cooperative workings will take place at local level too, ultimately cities need to do more to solve their own energy priorities, to take care of investment and also economic growth opportunities for the near future.
So the important understanding of coming to the summit is that we don't have all of the answers. Government doesn't know everything. And in order for us to navigate this new energy sector and this new energy economy and market, we will have to draw from the expertise of businesses, industry experts, other spheres of government. And it is essentially the best kind of public participation. Not the kind where, there's catering and a warm welcome and then everything is forgotten, but where the input is well documented, well considered, and then informs the next policy steps. So that is the purpose of our summit here today. So there are two important components to our roadmap to energy independence, or at least to reach that goal of 1,000 megawatt by the end of 2026. The one is the mothballed power stations of the city. We don't intend to operate those power stations. The City Council has already taken the in-principle decision that they should be leased to IPPs, subject to a subsequent process for a period of 40 years, which gives a good investment horizon and also allows for a gradual transition towards a decarbonized power. The next step of the power stations depends on the outcome of a transactional advisor. The city has budgeted for that process, and hopefully we'll get that request for proposals out to IPPs as to what to do with the power stations as soon as possible. The other component is procuring from IPPs who use their own infrastructure, who use their own property, solar, gas, whatever combination. And in that regard, we've already embarked upon a process to get information from the market, and we're almost ready to start acting on that information we've gathered. Well, the interesting thing is we've had a lot of support for our initiatives from, for instance, the Minister of Electricity. NERSA has been very open in advising us of the regulatory framework. So everyone knows that in order for us to sustain economic growth, we need more electricity than Eskom can provide. And that's why we've seen a lot of support, even from other spheres of government that aren't historically aligned to this particular administration. We've seen support and we really hope to take hands and to strengthen that support.
About 480 of those megawatts will be produced by our current two power stations, which we are recommissioning, and 520 will be typically produced by IPPs. So we are aiming for the 520 to be true alternative renewable energy. As you know, our Rooiwal power station is a coal-fired power station. The state of the infrastructure there is fairly solid and of good quality. So we are not looking for complete refurbishment or rebuild there. We are looking at putting watts onto our grid as quickly as possible at an affordable price, and also aligned with our sustainability goals that we've set for ourselves as a city. The type of partnership we need here are patient partners that can buy into, let's build a capital city over a 20, 30, 40-year period. There are certainly not quick and high returns that we'll be able to guarantee any participant over the next 5 or 10 years. But what we say is, allow us to open up a conducive environment within which you can plan properly. You can make a significant investment commitment because our infrastructure needs to be funded by these participants, by the IPPs, and essentially we are tariff funding the entire energy transition of Tshwane. So we'll ask them to recoup a portion of their tariff to pay for the capital infrastructure that has been financed. So we need patient partners, but we definitely cannot do it without partners. So the city of Tshwane is also the research and development hub of the continent, and we've invited all our universities and students to come and exhibit and come and participate in our Energy Summit. It's important for us to capture that research and student voice because it's not only full of energy, but it's also why we are doing what we're doing. But certainly the development that takes place in private manufacturing in terms of energy efficiency and energy reduction, which also leads to carbon emission reductions, is something we need to replicate. And our executive mayor was very clear when he stated, even if you think we are doing wrong things, tell us that so that we can then mitigate against that. If you think we are doing things right but not at the right scale, tell us that. But this is to create a conversation where we can capture the inputs of private sector so that whatever product we put out is actually what the market wants. The metros in South Africa, they don't compete for the same source of funding. So in 2018, Professor Ronald Wall published a study, The Geography of Investments, and it clearly traced the origin of foreign direct investments into South Africa. So there's no metro that competes for the same source funding. So one, we're not at competition. I believe in a regional approach. I believe the Gauteng region, so City of Joburg, City of Ekurhuleni, City of Tshwane, can together in a regional approach actually solicit a lot more investment flow into the region because of the risk mitigation characteristics. But what I do believe that investors, and this is what investors ask us for, is policy certainty. We want to be certain if you issue an RFP and you say these are the terms, these are the modalities, this is the policy. We want to take long-term investment decisions based on the certainty of that. So certainly what investors are looking for is stability from a government perspective, and then stability from an administrative implementation perspective. And once you can convince them of this, it then gets down into what does the project say? Is the project feasible? Is it fundable? What are the risks? It allows them to do what they do best, and that is to essentially package the risk into a way which is appealing or appetizing to them, or at least accommodating to them, and being able to generate returns on their money, because their monies are not generating a return where it currently is sitting.
We were very pleased that the participation by panel members was very positive. They cautioned on issues that we must take into account, because this is a massive project which is going to cost billions. And then we take their advice, but what we really like is that they all agree that the project must indeed proceed, but it must proceed with certain safeguards in place. One of it being that we must know the strengths and weaknesses of our own network and do proper studies and simulations. And some members availed themselves to assist, especially DBSA and CSIR, with advanced studies so that the study becomes a success, yes. Well, majority of the sources are siding with solar. You know that we are in a country which has got very warm and good radiation of sun. But then there are people who say that we also sit with waste dumps that are also a proven source of energy. What I like is that people also debated those other sources like nuclear and wind that do not sound very feasible, but they did not ignore it. So they also passed their remarks about them. You had a big debate also about nuclear and the micro-nuclear, and then the experts were giving their take on it. And we then take that in its stride. But I think solar and waste and some form of gas and methane are taking the lead at the moment. But we are not closing out from, that's why we call it an expression of interest. And then people would then come with proposals that they feel they can fund. Very fortunately, this is not a new territory for us. Tomorrow you will see representative of a company called Bio2Watt, who have been free energy willing to one of the big car manufacturers here. So it is not the first of it. So when we speak to manufacturers and our clients, they tell us that they want to do the right thing, which is protecting the climate. And they would really love to find that the product that they do is from a sustainable source. We have been speaking with a number of people who are talking to data centers who also want to come to this country of ours. And they are saying, we are not just interested in the dirty coal energy. You would be one of those who are also supplying clean energy. That's why majority of the questions here is on people who say, how can we piggyback on the municipal network to provide the greener source that the end consuming customer needs?
Okay, so the South African Electrotechnical Export Council is a public-private partnership between the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition and the private sector in the electrotechnical space. Electrotechnical covers electrical engineering, electronics, ICT and telecommunications. And under the electrical engineering subsector, we have a lot of member companies that produce solutions for renewable energy infrastructure builds. So we also have a mandate from government to make sure that we take South African competencies outside of South Africa, so identify what capabilities we've got in the country to export into the rest of the continent, but also then work very closely with the provincial agencies such as GGDA, municipal agencies such as TIDA, and also in other areas where there are a lot of renewable energy assets such as Eastern Cape, Western Cape, Northern Cape. Specifically with Tshwane, as you're aware, the executive mayor made an announcement that they are wanting to develop their energy infrastructure to the tune of 1,000 megawatts by 2026 outside of the ESCOM supply. So with that in mind, we're working closely with them to produce this particular summit. We were involved in the coordination of the program to make sure that we bring the relevant speakers from both government, private sector and other key stakeholders. We took advantage of the fact that Tshwane also is host to a lot of the foreign embassies and high commissions. And we know that through climate diplomatic processes, a number of countries are putting a lot of money towards countries that have got a serious strategy around a just energy transition. So hence us getting involved in the Tshwane Energy Summit. Okay, I think a key word that you've used is clean energy and not just renewable energy. So there are ways in which that we're looking. So I know institutions such as ESCOM have got certain solutions and working closely with the CSIR to see how, as South Africa, we do continue to utilize our coal, because our coal assets are not completely depleted, but we utilize them in a manner that doesn't emit as many greenhouse gases as they currently are. So that's the one thing that is being done. And also I think a lot of, not just South Africa, but a number of African countries are understanding that as a base load you might have to continue to use coal to an extent. However, having said that, coal does not attract investment. So where you want investment to come into your energy infrastructure build, you do need to go down the renewable energy route. So we find that a lot of solar projects are being developed, a lot of wind projects are being developed. We also have to understand that, for instance, on the African continent, you also have a lot of geothermal that we can use. And of course, we've also got the hydro capability. So as you know, as South Africa, we're importing about 2,500 megawatts of hydro from Cabora Bassa in Mozambique. And so looking at sort of what assets does Africa have in a clean and green way that we can use to generate power. So that's the one area that we need investment in, the generation side. But I think more importantly as well is that we need to now start looking at the transmission capability that we've got, not just as a country, but as a continent. So we are creating all these renewable asset bases. And so if we give an example of, for instance, the solar power, where as South Africa we created massive solar energy assets in the Northern Cape, but the industry is sitting in Gauteng. So it's transmitting that power now through to where it's required. And so now that's where some of the emphasis is now being placed on making sure that when we build these assets, we've got the capability to transmit where you need the power.
So basically what we're trying to do is to say the Energy One Stop Shop was developed to assist energy developers and specifically IPPs in getting their projects through the development phases and over the line to construction. We know that there's the regulatory framework in South Africa is, and I don't want to use the word cumbersome, but it is, and fragmented, and a number of licenses and authorizations are required, and investors lose interest, they become risk averse. So the Energy One Stop Shop was developed under the Energy Action Plan by the Presidency to provide that role as a coordination and facilitation role, to basically ease the burden of engaging with government government and other entities in terms of the licensing and approval processes. So there's definitely an interest also in terms of the government programs. I'm sure you're familiar with the IPP program and the bidding programs through that. So the Energy One Stop Shop is getting more exposure through that, and people are reaching out to us to assist them. Obviously the interest is there because you can only show through your track record if you're achieving and meeting the objectives. So ultimately, as a conduit between government and developers, it eases the burden to a certain extent. I'm not saying that we've overcome all the challenges, but we're certainly putting concerted efforts towards those and trying to get to that point. I think it has changed. The mindset has changed significantly over the years. Obviously, there's certain limitations. We know that we do need base load. We've seen the renewable energy sector grow over the last few years, and we also now know that it's not enough in order to address the challenges that we face in South Africa. But there has certainly, in my view, been a change in the mindset and to find alternative greener solutions and greener options. The reality is we will have to find or strike a balance somewhere along the line, because it is not enough, as we know, to address the current challenge that we're facing.
Begindugu is a Tier 1 SANEDI accredited energy services company. It's also an engineering solutions company as well as an engineering consulting company. We've been around since 2005, providing all of the engineering consulting services, development services, as well as advisory services. So we've been developing energy projects since 2007, 2008, and eventually we cut our fingers and our hands in gas to power in 2010. So we've been at this for a while. So where we are right now in this conference, we're with the Tshwane Auto Special Economic Zone, for which we have developed a 20 megawatt power plant, gas to power plant, to supply baseload for the manufacturing industry, the auto manufacturing industry in the east of Pretoria. So what we're talking about with the mayor was essentially introducing our company and letting them know we are hand in hand participating and collaborating not only with the city but with the Auto Special Economic Zone in order to provide cleaner power, because natural gas is cleaner power, where it has probably less than 50% the carbon footprint of our beloved Eskom. There is no economic growth without electricity. There is absolutely no investment that will come through without energy security, and therefore it is very important for the city to have such an energy summit, which then informs and directs and collaborates with public and private in order to come up with those solutions, the best solutions, not only for the province, the city, but also for the country. And so what we're looking at is all sorts of technologies, a technology mix that will ensure a cost-effective energy supply, but very good energy security, especially for manufacturing, because manufacturing is a 24-hour environment, and it therefore requires very high levels of predictability and very high levels of quality of supply. By quality of supply is it can't fluctuate, whether in intensity, voltage, or even frequency, and that type of thing is always mitigated by ensuring that you have the right energy mix. That's making sure that you've got clean energy when it comes to the renewables part, but you supplement it with dispatchable power as well as base load where you can, as clean as possible.
So I think what's the most important thing about Tshwane, and actually about Gauteng, is that it's not only the economic hub, it's the manufacturing hub and the AI hub. So what this means for a company like mine is that we are able to position ourselves in the perfect way with Tshwane Economic Development Agency in terms of it propelling us into the markets we are trying to gain access to. So the investments don't only come from a monetary perspective, but also come with skills. So that is what we are hoping to get from these relationships, which we're obviously nurturing here. And then with that, we hope to take it and create a much more fruitful and profitable businesses that are actually sustainable. So right behind me, we have the ZBRS. It's a passenger three-wheeler. It's your tuk-tuk that went to private school. So this particular product, it's pure electric. It gives you about 100 kilometers of range from a single charge. You charge it from your normal wall socket, one phase or two phase. And then further to that, It's the safest vehicle in its class globally. It does come with notable sails on the side. I just don't have them on right now. And with that, I mean, you can drive them in all types of weather conditions, be it rain, sunshine, snow, I think yes right now, and I'm just not sure about a desert storm. So this product is one of the two which we provide. The other one is the ZB Cargo. So the ZB Cargo is the one where we have a lot of interest from retailers because there it's all about delivery. It's how do we move goods. So you want to be able to move people and goods in the most efficient way, cost efficient most importantly, which is electric, where you're decarbonizing, where you're also gaining carbon credits, and you have a good relationship with the taxman. So our products literally serve that. They are moving people, moving goods. They're doing a job of that. Number two, you're taking away the pain being the cost of transportation as a service or transportation overall. And then lastly, the profit is the margin that the person or the company now makes from using our products. That is what we have. I think for a product like ours, a business like ours, could really thrive in the Tshwane Automotive Special Economic Zone. And that's because, I mean, they've got a VIP grid, which is the most important and needed for manufacturing. And then number two, it's all about creating employment within those immediate communities. So we have a unique business model which aligns to the special economic zone, which creates that notable employment, benefiting from the incentives which are provided there. And then further to that, we also have a reach and repeat model which can also expand in different ways within other special economic zones. Because again, I mean, they're very distanced from from cities or people. So that's how we see it. If you look at the manufacturing value chain in South Africa, it's still very, as much as it's 100 years old right today, it's still very premature from an electric mobility perspective. So we are the front runners, we're the catalysts of this industry in ensuring that we develop it. So it's not just skills transfer, skills development, but it's also preparing the environment. So in all that we're doing a lot of work in all these different cardinal pillars that we've created for our business, and that's what we are. So started 8 years ago. It was literally from me driving around in Richards Bay, and I saw a problem that we see every day. People walking, but now people walking great distances just to access transport. And with that, I mean, I formulated a business model which was around transportation as a service, business model innovation, and clean energy. So that, I mean, I remember trying to think, can I actually call an Uber from where I am, or can I call a meter taxi? And can everybody else do it? And I realized that no, they can't. Well, they can, but it's expensive. So I had to start the problem from understanding people and then develop it into a business. And eventually I partnered up with a company in Sweden, which helped me get to where I am with the product, bringing it in to the country. And then eventually over time, we've been bootstrapping the company, getting it to where it is, getting new investors to also believe in the product, believe in the business. And, you know, hopefully we're also trying to get the government itself, because the government of South Africa has literally, since 1924, when the first assembly line was created for a certain, I forgot which product it was always backed by the government. So for South Africa to see its own South African vehicle, its own South African product, it needs the government. It doesn't come from the private sector. The private sector can come with the ideas, but the implementation and the support comes from government. If you look at all the notable top 7 automotive companies, that top 7 are literally driven by incentives. How the government supports them is how they retain in this country. So us as a company, we're hoping to also communicate our cry for investment, for funding, because there's no way that a historically disadvantaged individual could create something out of it. Yes, you can. I did create it out of nothing, but in order for it to get to a scalable phase of its development, needs the government in that light.
Okay, so we were quite excited for the opportunity to exhibit and network at the Tshwane Energy Summit. As a manufacturer of solar structures, we find that these sorts of events connect us with the right peoples in the right industries to be able to service their larger utility scale and even smaller projects. Lumax Energy is a manufacturer of solar structures. We manufacture rooftop structures for residential and commercial scale projects. We also manufacture carports and ground mounts, and then we've recently started manufacturing a single axis tracker, which tracks the movement of the sun. You probably get about 25 to 30% more yield out of the structure for that. We're hoping to add value in giving a well-built solution, a well-engineered solution to the market, something that will outperform your PV panels and just add a longevity to a project.
So the message here from the Tshwane Energy Summit here in Pretoria is very clear. 1,000 megawatts is what the city needs in order to take care of its energy priorities for domestic and industrial environments, in order to be attractive to investors and for economic growth, and at the same time just take care of business here at home in a city where more and more metros worldwide are starting to take care of their own energy needs and not necessarily relying on monopolistic national players like Eskom. For Business Day Television, I'm Gary Alfonso.